Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks everyone for joining from wherever you are. My name is Stephen Jones and I'm the General Manager of our EC2 Enterprise SAP team. Today I'm really excited to share how and why more and more customers are future-proofing their businesses by leveraging the AWS platform for their SAP workloads. So let's dive in. Now, AWS has been supporting SAP customers since 2011, and over that time, we've seen quite a number of things change. However, one of the things we've seen now consistently for some time is that customers don't just want an infrastructure platform to support their SAP workloads. They really want a platform for innovation. And furthermore, when customers are talking to us about what's driving their move to S/4HANA, the single number one reason is the desire to modernize and to innovate faster. Now, while we see and support customers who are making this transition to S/4HANA, like Bristol-Myers Squibb, Phillips 66, and many more, one challenge that we see, and IDC also stated in a recent publication, is that many customers just aren't quite ready yet for an S/4HANA transformation. And they're really working on building that business case for their future. But as you'll see throughout the course of this presentation, this doesn't have to be a prerequisite for modernization. And many customers across nearly every industry are finding ways to modernize and transform with their existing SAP investments, and doing that on AWS. And increasingly, customers and partners worldwide are choosing AWS to host their SAP workloads because of the reliability, the performance, the security, and just the sheer scale of the AWS platform. Now, let's talk a little bit about ISG. ISG is a leading global technology research and advisory firm, and they recently published a research report analyzing cloud service providers specific to SAP. Now, their quadrant specifically examined cloud infrastructures that are best suited to host the SAP software portfolio. And they placed an emphasis specifically on SAP S/4HANA workloads and very large-scale HANA databases. ISG recognized AWS as the global leader for the third consecutive year, and this included leadership positions in individual quadrants across the US, the UK, France, Germany, the Nordics, and Brazil. ISG also called out AWS as the leading critical, important infrastructure provider across the widest variety of best-in-class infrastructure for SAP, the best-in-class security and performance, size and scale, and for reliability. And finally, ISG also recorded as a strength AWS's partnership with SAP and our robust partner community that is helping SAP customers make this transformation. And this is in part why we actually see the adoption of AWS by SAP customers all over the world continue to accelerate at a rapid clip. We have well over 5,000 customers today now actively operating their SAP workloads on AWS. And as you can see here, this includes customers from nearly every industry vertical. Take, for example, retail with Bose and Uniqlo and Zalando. We have customers from healthcare and life sciences with the likes of Bristol-Myers Squibb and Moderna. In government and defense with Lockheed Martin, the US Navy, and the Army. Insurance with AIG and Liberty Mutual, and the energy sector with British Petroleum, Contact Energy, and Origin, both of which are actually in APAC. And this large and global customer base continues to provide continuous insights and feedback directly to us as we look to expand our product and service portfolio for SAP, and that's important. And what we're seeing is some patterns that are emerging. First, it's pretty rare that we actually work with a customer that now doesn't have multiple data sources. They've got their enterprise systems, they've got SaaS now as part of their solutions, and they've also got other disparate data sources, and they're really looking to bring that all together. It's also rare that customers are getting the full benefit from all this data that they already own, and they're asking for help. Second, we see a lot of customers, especially in the heavy industries like oil and gas, utilities, manufacturing, and auto, taking advantage of AWS and our IoT capabilities to get more from their existing manufacturing equipment. And then more and more product companies are leveraging AWS IoT as part of their smart product offerings. And most importantly, and more broadly, we're actually noticing that customers, SAP customers, are focused on optimizing their existing SAP investments to maximize that value, and then turning their attention to optimization, the modernization, and the transformation of these landscapes over time. And as mentioned, we're seeing this type of adoption. It's accelerating across the world. And if we home in on EMEA, you can see here just a subset of some of our customers. And these are customers that are really trusting AWS with their SAP landscapes. This includes the likes of HP, Lamborghini, Volkswagen, of course, who is completely reinventing auto manufacturing, other big manufacturers like Siemens, energy companies like Engie, and of course, SAP themselves, who are increasingly leveraging AWS for their own products and services. Now, As you think about your own SAP journey, it's important to realize that you have options. Now, the reality is that there are a lot of really good approaches that customers are taking, and I'm going to share many of those with you today. But one of the things we hear consistently from customers is that they want to have the choice to pick the strategy that's based on their individual business requirements. Now, for most customers, really the first step is getting their existing SAP landscapes out of their own data centers and into AWS. And this is in order to take advantage of our highly cost-effective, our secure and reliable infrastructure. And then once customers have actually migrated, their focus turns towards optimizing these workloads, streamlining the operations, and then running. Furthermore, over time, SAP on the AWS platform really brings a refreshed insight into their thinking about how to operate these in a new paradigm. And what customers find is a new set of capabilities that just weren't available to them previously in an on-premises world. But as I touched earlier, customers don't just want a better infrastructure solution. They want to be able to innovate around their core business systems, and they really want to do it a whole lot faster. So what we're finding is that once a customer actually lands on AWS, they're then able to quickly go to work to modernize their SAP systems. This may also mean undergoing a more holistic enterprise-wide transformation. And I'd like to actually walk through just a couple of examples here to show you some of the stages that we've seen customers actually take through this journey. First, shortly after their acquisition by Comcast, NBC Universal's SAP landscape ballooned, and their IT leadership was faced with the decision to purchase new hardware and spend another 5 years in their data centers, or evaluate a new option. Now, their SAP ECC environment was highly customized, it had little or no automation, and had gotten pretty fragile, which was creating risk to their businesses. Now, after assessing their options, they chose AWS as the new home to lift and shift this SAP workload. And they've already seen some pretty tremendous results. First, of course, they were able to avoid being locked into their data centers for another 4 to 5 years. They're finding that their systems are way more reliable, and they're now able to leverage the AWS global infrastructure for some new and improved DR and high availability strategies. They've also been able to clean up their environment. They've told us that they've been able to remove customizations and redundancies, leading to an 83% size reduction of their overall database footprint. And with AWS, they're also seeing major improvements in processing performance and doing all of this at a lower cost than they could have done on premises. Now, they've also said that while they're still in the relatively early stages of their cloud journey, they told us they really believe it's just the beginning, and they have plans to leverage AWS to squeeze a lot more value of the SAP investment that they've made. Another example is Invista. They're a company that lifted and shifted their existing ECC-based SAP environment to AWS, and like NBC Universal, their AWS migration netted them very huge infrastructure benefits, namely about $2 million per year in cost reductions. Now, they're a really good example of a customer that has decided to keep their existing SAP capabilities and then use AWS as their platform of innovation to get more from this investment. And this has allowed them to solve some pretty interesting and major business problems. First, as I alluded to earlier, Invista actually had a classic data silo problem, where the data that they were keeping local in their data centers was actually based on factory locations. So sharing data between factory locations was super difficult. So one of the first things they did after they moved SAP to AWS was to use Snowball Edge devices and other methods to get this data back into AWS, into a holistic data lake within S3, and to provide an integrated data solution in one single location. And what this has allowed them to do is to improve forecasting across all these multiple data sources, which now includes SAP data, and in turn reduce the amount of spare parts they have to keep on hand, and they estimate it's saving them millions globally. Secondly, they wanted to improve their quality inspections for both inbound materials and their whole entire production processes. And they're now using a combination of Amazon Recognition along with AI capabilities to do automated visual inspections. And they've been able to dramatically reduce defects to the entire production process. In fact, Invista estimates they've been able to save approximately $300 million in value from all of these new capabilities. Pretty impressive. And then we have customers that have decided to take on a broader digital transformation together with S4HANA. And Zalando is a really great example of a customer who is combining the capabilities of S4HANA with AWS services to completely reimagine their businesses to offer a better experience to their customer. Now, for some background, Zalando is a European online fashion retailer based in Berlin, Germany, and their website attracts around 350 million visits per month and has over 31 million active subscribers. As of today, Zalando has actually integrated its SAP system with over 36 AWS technologies. Primarily, they've actually focused a lot of work to create a hybrid data architecture, and specifically to create a data lake architecture that uses Amazon S3, Redshift, and HANA together to give them insights they need when they need it. And using S/4HANA in its hybrid data architecture tier, Zalando estimates they're actually able to now make decisions based on current events versus past events. Now, as a result of this hybrid architecture solution, Zalando estimates they've lowered the cost of ownership for their entire SAP data architecture by about 30%. In turn, they've taken the savings from that effort and invested that back into the development of solutions to enhance their own customer service and other efficiencies. For example, they use Amazon Lex, creating chatbots that have made a dramatic improvement for their customer service employees to respond to customer inquiries on their retail platform. They've also been able to leverage image recognition to speed up image processing, which is helping them move fast enough to now ship 90 million orders per year. I love the quote here. Zalando says that by integrating SAP with AWS technologies, they're actually able to steer their business now in near real time. It's pretty impressive. And I want to talk finally about one other customer, SAP themselves. Now, SAP has been using AWS since 2008, and today they're using AWS to power many of their own products and services today. As you can see here on the slide, there are a number of capabilities that SAP leverages AWS to host on AWS, some of their core product cloud offerings, including SAP Cloud Platform or recently named Business Technology Platform. Their hosting option for SAP and S/4HANA, including HANA Enterprise Cloud. Their subsidiary that focuses on the US public sector, SAP NS2, is hosting big customers like the Navy, which I'll talk about here in a moment, in our AWS GovCloud. And then many of the acquisitions, the SaaS acquisitions that SAP has made over the years that were built on AWS continue to run and leverage the AWS platform, and this includes Concur and Qualtrics and others. And then finally, they're running and operating many of their data and analytics offerings on AWS, and that includes things like SAP Analytics Cloud, and even some of the latest and greatest offerings in the data space, like Data Warehouse Cloud and HANA Cloud. Now, increasingly, we're seeing our customers are loving the ability to actually host their core business systems alongside with these new innovations from SAP, all together on the same AWS platform. And that's important. So what I'd like to do is shift a little bit and spend a few minutes speaking to the things that AWS is doing to ensure we continue to be the best place for our customers to run even the most demanding SAP workloads. Now first, there are three primary areas we continue to double down on in order to help customers move quicker. We recognize that all types and sizes of customers are important and they need help on this journey. And this is why we continue to focus to ensure we have world-class infrastructure capabilities that support even the smallest customers all the way to the largest enterprises. Now we also understand the deployment and the management of SAP environments is a heavy investment for our customers and partners, which is why we're focused on providing operational tooling to make this work a lot easier as well. And speaking of partners, they are really key to our customer success, which is why we're focusing on tooling, programs, and additional enablement to help them help you. And so what I'd like to do is to dive into each of these areas. So first, let's talk about infrastructure innovation for SAP. Now, SAP and AWS have been innovating on the cloud for over a decade together. And there's, as Andy likes to say, there is no compression algorithm for this experience. Our guiding star really has been to bring the flexibility and the agility of the AWS platform to this critical workload. And if you look back in the early days, we were first to certify the business suite on any database, including Oracle, SQL Server, and DB2. AWS was also the first to support SAP's HANA database. This was nearly over 5 years ago. And early on, we knew it was important to provide prescriptive guidance and guardrails so that customers who were going through these deployments could adopt AWS best practices and SAP best practices. And this led us to actually develop what we call quick starts, which were automated deployment vehicles that customers could use to deploy SAP landscapes in less than an hour. Along the way of this journey, we've been actually the first to offer purpose-built infrastructure for SAP, and this has included instances capable of supporting multiple terabytes of RAM. And today, AWS offers instances with up to 6, 9, 12, 18, and a whopping 24 terabytes of RAM just for SAP HANA. In fact, these are the only cloud offerings available today that run on bare metal, but that are also seamlessly integrated into a software-defined cloud infrastructure, and that is super important. And this is made possible through a proprietary AWS technology called Nitro. What this also allows us to do is leverage native storage offerings like EBS, which ensure as customers' needs grow, you can seamlessly expand without having to change architecture patterns or to switch technology platforms. Now, as I mentioned previously, SAP has consistently built their product and service offerings on AWS over the years, which allows customers to run their business processes in their systems side by side with these new SAP offerings. And we also continue to listen to customers to create new infrastructure offerings, but also offerings beyond infrastructure. And more recently, we released a native backup agent for SAP HANA. I'll talk about that here in a moment. A new Launch Wizard, which brings additional automated capabilities directly into the AWS console for SAP deployments. But more on that in just a bit. It can be said that all cloud providers offer basic cloud infrastructure, compute, storage, networking, resources, all as a service. But when you really look under the hood, not all providers have focused on availability like AWS does at the global, the regional, and the data center level. In fact, this was recognized in a recent study by Gartner, and for the 10th year in a row, AWS was evaluated as a leader in the 2020 Gartner Magic Quadrant for cloud infrastructure and platform services. And we placed highest in both axes of measurement, which included the ability to execute and the completeness of vision. And we really put a lot of effort into our designs to ensure a high degree of security, performance, and fault tolerance at every level. And this really bears out in availability metrics, but more importantly, in less downtime for customers, which for this type of workload is absolutely critical. And while hardware can and it will fail, we know that SAP systems are the backbone of many of our customers' businesses. And this is why we focus a lot of effort on reliability, resiliency, and performance at the individual server level too. Now, the aforementioned Nitro system, which I was talking about, for example, allows us to offer this purpose-built infrastructure, which also allows us to offload capabilities that are traditionally handled by a virtualization stack software, so customers can actually take full advantage of the host, CPU, and memory. Now, we also work closely with partners on availability solutions for SAP that customers can implement to ensure they can also run highly available architecture patterns with automated failover handling that can span multiple data centers. And these capabilities have led to some of the most stringent customers out there moving to AWS. For example, the US Navy migrated their largest SAP ERP systems to AWS GovCloud, and these systems actually support approximately 72,000 users spread across 6 different Navy commands. And their project, which came in 10 months ahead of schedule, puts the movement and documentation of some 70 billion plus worth of parts and goods directly into a single location where information can now be shared, analyzed, and protected more uniformly. Even more, the Navy is now able to pull advanced analytics reports on things like the health of their supply chain or payments in hours, where similar reviews, they tell us, used to take more than 20 hours on their legacy environments. Now, we're pretty excited to see what's next with the Navy and to see other like customers on this journey. HP is another good example here. Now, they had started working through a deployment of SAP S/4HANA, and as this project progressed, they realized they needed a much more flexible and performant platform than their existing provider was offering. And together with one of our AWS SAP competency partners and AWS Professional Services, they began a migration of their systems to AWS, and in less than 6 months, they completed the migration of more than 280 servers associated with their SAP landscapes. And one of the keys to such a rapid deployment like this was their use of AWS Launch Wizard, which provided a guided and an automated approach for deploying SAP. And now with the EC2 high memory instances, they've reported dramatically improved processing speeds, plus a newfound flexibility to increase capacity quickly, even for their largest systems. For example, they are able to make a switch from a 6 terabyte instance for their production S/4HANA database to a 12 terabyte instance within less than 30 minutes of downtime. They're now also able to scale infrastructure as broadly as their business needs dictate, and today they're operating more than 600 servers across 11 different SAP landscapes. And finally, HP has told us that these capabilities are enabling them to deliver their next generations of products and services for their customers. For example, they're now able to combine device telemetry data from millions of printers and PCs that are stored on AWS with demand and planning data from SAP in order to deliver preventative and predictive maintenance services for their own customers. Now, as more and more enterprise customers are moving their production SAP landscapes to AWS, We're continuing to push boundaries to offer even more highly performant and durable infrastructure. And to that end, we've recently worked with SAP to certify 2 brand new AWS offerings with SAP that we're pretty excited about. First, we have Amazon EBS IO2 volumes that are our newest version of provisioned IOPS volumes. And these volumes provide up to 5 nines of durability, or about 100x improvement over our previous IO1 volumes. Now, they also provide 10 times the IOPS per gig, meaning you can scale your performance without having to scale up your volume, which is also helping customers to lower cost. And the best part is that IO2 volumes are available at the same price as the comparable IR1 counterparts. Then moving over to the EC2 side, we have our new R5B instance, which was recently announced. This is a new EBS optimized instance that offers up to 60 gigabits per second of storage throughput and over 260,000 IOPS per instance. This is literally the fastest block storage performance on any EC2 instance type, making it ideal for very IOPS heavy relational databases like SAP on Oracle, DB2, and SQL Server. And we're super excited to see what customers do with this. Now, moving beyond infrastructure, as I stated, we've been investing in bringing capabilities that help simplify SAP management and operation to customers as well. And as I mentioned, early on we recognized this was important and developed quick starts to help automate deployments way back in 2014. And customers really loved this. And we built additional quick starts to further not just HANA deployments, but to simplify the deployment of SAP NetWeaver and S/4HANA as well. However, customers told us that they wanted an even simpler experience and provided guidance in choosing infrastructure that would balance cost, performance for both production and non-production workloads. And so to help with this, we recently this year built and launched a new product offering called Launch Wizard, which provides now a wizard-based deployment experience directly in the AWS console. Now, Launch Wizard is able to help customers now choose the right instance type for SAP, based, for example, on SAP sizing, together with the recommended storage configurations that go along with that instance type. Now, customers, once a deployment is complete, can actually save these deployments, templates, and then reuse them later to install and launch additional systems when needed. And Launch Wizard doesn't just help with core services like EC2 and EBS and S3. We spent the time to natively integrate Launch Wizard with a myriad of other AWS services. And behind the scenes, this is helping build secure, highly available, and production-ready systems for SAP. Some of the more recent innovations in Launch Wizard, and we're moving at a rapid clip here, is the integration of this backup agent, which I'll speak to in just a moment. The ability to actually extend Launch Wizard with both pre- and post-processing capabilities. So for example, customers, if they want to run some processes or simple scripts before or after an installation, they can actually do this now using Launch Wizard. And then we've extended the ability for Launch Wizard to support both NetWeaver application installations, as well as the full S/4HANA implementation. And customers or partners have told us that the Launch Wizard that they've been using has significantly been able to speed up their SAP projects, sometimes eliminating multiple weeks or even months of time. And it's super easy to get started and free to use. You just pay for the resources that you actually spin up. And we're super excited to keep innovating in the space. This is an area to keep watching. Now, one of the areas customers have asked us to investigate is how we can make backups of their very large SAP HANA landscapes a whole lot easier. If you look on the left here, previously customers had to use a two-step process to back up a database. First to EBS, and then either snapshot that backup using EBS snapshot capabilities, or manually pushing that backup file to S3 using the AWS CLI. So we went to work to figure out how to make this a whole lot simpler. And earlier this year, we released an AWS backup agent for SAP HANA. And this agent essentially allows customers to back up and restore their SAP HANA databases directly to and from Amazon S3. Now, this agent natively also integrates with SAP HANA management tools, like the SAP HANA Cockpit or the HANA Studio. And what this allows is for customers to easily set up backup retentions or schedules, retention policies with tooling that obviously they're already familiar with. Now, the best part is that it's optimized to take advantage of the dedicated throughput to EBS and also networking bandwidth that are available, for example, on our high memory instances or the R5B instance that I mentioned just a bit ago. Now, just to give you an example of speed here, to test the limits, we set up a 23 terabyte HANA database spread across 8 high memory instances, each with 6 terabytes of RAM. And we were actually able to back up the complete database to S3 in 23 minutes. Yes, that's 23 terabytes in 23 minutes. Pretty impressive. Now, the backup agent is free to use. Again, you only pay for the S3 resources you consume. This agent can easily be installed through AWS Systems Manager or through the aforementioned Launch Wizard as part of the overall HANA system provisioning process. The third area we're investing in helping our customers is developing our partner community. And we really recognize that the migration, the management, and the operation of SAP systems is pretty complex. And so for years, we've been investing in a global community of partners to help our customers on their SAP journey, wherever their starting point might be. Now, our SAP competency program is designed to ensure that a partner has the right skills in order to help our customers be successful. And today we have over 60 SAP competency partners. They're all over the globe, helping customers migrate, modernize, and transform their SAP workloads. Fun fact, today our partners are actually helping over 90% of our net new SAP customers who are migrating to AWS. Now, we also have a growing number of partners who are creating specialized migration factories to help customers migrate their SAP workloads to AWS. And this is a group of partners that are SAP competency partners, but they've also shown additional capabilities to really safeguard these customer migrations to AWS. As part of this, we've also created additional investment funding mechanisms for these partners, and this in order to help customers ease some of the costs associated with these migrations. All of these partners have shared their capabilities publicly through press releases, and more competency partners are going through our validation process in order to be part of this group. I'd encourage you to reach out to your AWS account team for any more information on this particular program or for a partner in your particular area. Now, that said, our partner community is also rapidly expanding beyond just migration and operations of SAP workloads for customers. Increasingly, we're also seeing that in addition to customers, partners are also using AWS as their platform of innovation for SAP relevant offerings. And in turn, this is giving our customers more options for modernizing their business processes. And Pillar here is a really good example. They built their edge-ready cloud solution as a low-code offering that runs 100% on AWS. And this offering is helping SAP customers develop mobile apps that are now deeply integrated with SAP landscapes in order to optimize business processes. And this has allowed customers like Dole Packaged Foods to modernize their business process without a whole lot of coding of their own. In fact, Dole was leveraging SAP S/4HANA. They're running their business functions out of this, but they still had a lengthy manual paper, email, and Excel process for their materials creation process. And they said this was leading to higher operational costs and sometimes data integrity issues. And so what they did is they took Pilla's solution and they were able to design, build, and deploy a custom web app with a user-centric, customized experience that tightly integrated with SAP across this entire materials creation process. They told us they were able to deploy this quickly with very little ABAP programming of their own, and they saw a reduction of 30% of manual efforts for this important workflow for their business. I'm pretty excited about what partners are doing here, and I expect to see a whole lot more of this. So before we wrap up, I want to circle back on a few key points. The first is that you have options. Now, if you want to lift and shift your existing SAP applications to AWS, we literally have thousands of customers who have done just that. And they have seen significant cost reductions, performance improvements. And this then has quickly started them on the path to optimization and modernization. Now, if you're already on AWS, it's really easy to get started modernizing your SAP workloads like Invista did in order to bring new capabilities and insights to your businesses. If you're ready for a broader enterprise transformation like Zalando, that might include an S/4HANA and other SAP Cloud services, we're here to support you on that journey as well. Next, we're going to remain the platform of innovation and choice for SAP customers, and together with our broad partner community, we can help you get started innovating wherever you may be on that journey. And lastly, we're going to continue to invest in making AWS the best place to run your SAP workloads. And this, of course, includes infrastructure services, but also capabilities to help reduce operational burden so that you can instead focus your efforts on what actually brings your businesses value. And it remains our mission to be the world's most customer-centric technology company, and we'll continue to innovate to improve the experience of all of our customers. Now, we have a bunch more great SAP sessions here at re:Invent this year, many from customers who are sharing their own experiences that you can learn from. I would recommend you attend some of those that you see listed here. I want to thank you again for attending wherever you might be, and please remember at the end of this session to complete the session survey. Thank you.